Hi, welcome to the Blue Lotus podcast. I'm your host, Matara, and this is episode 3 of the podcast. We made it to episode 3, and that makes me very proud. Okay, so what I want to actually talk about today is an emotion that's been popping up a lot for me is the feeling of guilt, and that's something that I have carried for a long time with myself, and I still do. It's still a feeling I feel very often and in copious amounts, actually. And it's there in very subtle ways. The thing with guilt and shame is I try not to let it really dictate a lot of my actions. But I can't, what I notice is I'm at that stage where I can't help the way I react to it. So let's say I felt guilty, someone said something to me, they confronted me and said, "Hey, I don't like you doing this." And obviously I would say, "Yeah, sorry, I completely understand, blah, blah, blah." And they would move on and I wouldn't, and I would hold on to that guilt. And later on, I'll have the urge to apologize again, or I'll think about all the ways that I will never repeat this action again, or basically I will sit in that frequency. And I feel like guilt and shame is a pretty dark one to feel, because it's a pretty I think dark is the word, because the way I see it is there is no light that really comes through when you have the frequency of shame and guilt, because in its essence you feel like you aren't right, and you feel like you have no permission to exist the way you're existing in that moment. You feel like your mistake is so grave that you need to change who you are fundamentally, and therefore you don't accept yourself fundamentally as well, which is a pretty low frequency, I feel. It's a frequency that excludes life, because you are not allowed to live to the extent of who you are and make mistakes and realize that you make those mistakes and say sorry for it and just move on and forgive yourself. Or even if it's not a mistake, to not live to your full capacity. Essentially, that is what shame is, I guess, or guilt is. It's this feeling of you don't belong in an existence that you have kind of curated up in your brain, that this is how it should work. Everyone else is also reacting the same way, so therefore I must curate my existence in this space to fit that mold. I guess I'm trying to think of other instances where I felt guilt and I felt shame, and more often than not, for me, that is where it stems from. It could be different for other people. It could be different for you who's listening right now. Because I felt it today. I felt it quite strongly today, and it's something I feel often after like a night of going out with my friends, or I'll party, I'll come back, and I'll feel guilt the next day. And today, when I felt it, I was taking a bath, and I felt it. I felt it in my chest, and I paused for a bit, and I asked myself, I really want to experience this, and I really want to. Well, I didn't ask myself, I told myself, I really want to experience this, and I really want to transmute it, rather than ask myself, why am I going through this, and why am I feeling guilty? And sometimes, rather than getting to the root causes of these things, somatic therapy is much better, which is essentially, and I could be wrong here, but essentially you just recognizing the feelings and where you feel them in your body and kind of draw up. I heard a nice word for it today, which I don't remember. Feeling linguistics? I actually don't know. Emotion linguistics? I actually don't know. Anyways, but you basically draw up a map of what that feeling looks like when you have a reaction to it, and how your nervous system reacts to it. Because there is a story with all these triggers. It's not just shame, it's every emotion. You feel it, and then there is a story that your nervous system goes through when it immediately feels a trigger and a strong emotion, that it goes in that cycle, and you react a certain way because there is a narrative that is at play there, where your nervous system is like, okay, this person just reacted to me this way, and I can see displeasure on their face, so I am also going to react this way to negate this feeling. If not, it would blah, blah, blah. Don't know what the story is for you guys. Actually, you know what? I didn't even really dig that deep today because I just felt like it wasn't necessary to always dig that deep. And even though I kind of have the urge to say, you could dig deep and then you can find the story that your nervous system is telling you and really transmute that and learn from it and yada yada yada. But today I think I want to focus on actually not figuring out why and rather actually letting the energy flow through your body. Because the way I see it with all energy and all forms of energy and emotion, when you generate emotion in your body, is also energy. Sorry, that sounds so vague, but I'm just gonna kind of wash it down to explain. But you are sort of a vessel that energy can flow in and out of constantly. There's also processing within your body and your mind and your aura and everything in your spirit, where energy is also being processed and transmuted into different forms, and it goes in and out. It's this cyclic thing with the world, and so we live in harmony with the world and all of that good stuff. But usually what happens when we've gone through experiences that have dampened who we are and kind of put blocks in places and made it very uncomfortable for us to kind of live to our fullest potential and to who we are. Sometimes I've even noticed, sometimes it's not really a block, sometimes it's even overstimulation of that energy. Energy comes through and we block it, or we feel a block there, and it's not allowed to really pass through us completely and be experienced to its fullest extent, if that makes sense. It's just so vague, I know. But I don't think there's any other way to explain it, really. I'm sure someone else can do a better job. I made a small note on my phone about this whole thing, and I was looking at how I was looking at my shame. And at first, the first step was quite literally to admit it. So it's going through my mind. I'm seeing the thoughts. I have the urge to look at my phone, or I have the urge to just kind of drown it out because it's shame. It's a gnarly feeling. I don't really like experiencing it too much. And the first thing is to just admit that you're going through it and admit that you feel guilt and admit those other underlying thoughts that work in with that umbrella term of shame of like, what does that mean for you? Does that mean that you feel like your friends don't accept you, or you did something so cringe that you feel like you want to disappear? What are the thoughts? Materialize the thoughts and see the thoughts and admit to the thoughts. And the second step is for your body to be allowed to feel the experience of these thoughts, because your body reacts in different ways and my body reacts in different ways. And I think I mentioned in the first podcast as well, it can manifest as different things. But and it's crazy. It's like it could genuinely manifest in your big toe for you, and you'll feel it there, or you can feel it in your scalp, or you can feel it in your fingertips or your knee. It's really weird. Your body's a weird thing, and the whole thing's connected with every part of your being, and how it reacts actually is so related to every emotion that you are going through or what your nervous system is reacting to. And allowing your body to just go through that motion, whether it's jitters or shivers or whatever it is. And the third step is literally to experience it. That's it. But then you go less into your body and more into the feeling of what that means. Because it could be your body, and it could be your heart feels hollow, or your stomach feels like it has a pit. Then you can go a bit deeper into the experience of feeling that specific emotion. Because everything we feel, technically, is grounded in physical reality, and feelings seem like this foreign concept of something you can't really explain. It seems so arbitrary, but you can actually experience it to its fullest because it actually exists within our reality. And that's really it to transmuting an energy. You do that often enough, it becomes quite natural and it becomes free-flowing. And that means that the chakra center gets unblocked and it can free flow through you. Since we're on the topic of shame, I kind of want to dive deeper into that specific bubble of an emotion and kind of really uncover its roots to where it stems from and what it means to be shameful. And if you do have any ideas, please, please hit me up. I would love to hear any of it, because these are all my speculations as well of what it is, and through my own experiences of shame and guilt and all of that good stuff. I've been told that jealousy is the kind of low frequency of attachment where you attach yourself so much that it gets so dense that it comes out as jealousy. And for me, shame is also a very dense emotion. It's not a very light emotion, is it? I mean, everyone can kind of feel it. It feels very like in the stomach. It feels like very, you know, the word belly, like in the belly, like that has that same frequency to me. It's very, very heavy, is what I'm trying to say. And what a weird thing it is. And so many people, well, everyone really feels shame. That's such a normal emotion to feel. But what a weird concept of you don't belong, or your existence right now is not important or valid or right. That's really what it is, isn't it? It's that feeling of you are not doing the right thing right now. You should have known better, or whatever narrative you want to go down. But at its core, it's that you didn't do the right thing. And somehow that is the notion that there is the right thing. There is a right way to do it, and somehow the way you're doing it is not it. And what a weird way to live, because what do you mean there's a right way to live? There isn't. You're a human having a human experience in a world with other humans also having a human experience. I don't think they got any handbook that you didn't. But for some reason, our mind is so strong that it can convince us that we're not right. I think that comes quite evolutionarily as well, where we are humans living in societies and communities. In order for us to fit in and evolve within communities, we've built this tool of sorts to measure and kind of calibrate how normal we are within society so we can fit in. And really what I feel like it is, this tool of measuring if you're normal or not, is really a blind amalgamation of everyone's fears and insecurities and quirks, and putting them all in like a melting pot and trying to figure out how to fit to everyone's standards. So you pick majority, obviously. There's obviously things like common etiquette, and you feel shame and guilt if you don't follow those things. But there's also things like nuances where you wouldn't know unless you're part of a group, and they make you feel weird for not being part of that group and not understanding the inside jokes and whatnot. But that's what it is, isn't it? It's kind of, it's weird because I feel like we're just all blindly pointing fingers at each other here when it comes to shame, and someone else is bullying someone else and making them feel shameful for not being normal or not fitting in or not doing the right thing, and the other person is also feeling shameful for said thing, and so they change themselves, and then in the next instance someone else is different, so they have to change themselves again and again and again. It's this never-ending fight for survival, really, and to fit in, and to keep up with evolution. Which is a crazy thing to go against, because this is embedded in us, in who we are as humans. Shame is really, it's deeply rooted in us. But I think also I really think it's built through the frequency of survival, because that's what it is. It's just trying to survive. So you have to survive through a community with the help of society and your neighbors and all of that. It's based off of survival, because it's a way to sort of narrow yourself down to fit status quo so you can survive. But the thing with shame is that nowadays, most of us, and I'm assuming that you have a roof over your head and you have an internet connection and hopefully some fresh water, you and I are not in that space of imminent threat. So now there's this mechanism that has been evolved in our body to perfection, really, and in our nervous system that we need to survive, but we don't have situations that really threaten our physical survival level, survival something. You know what I mean. Which is wild way to think about it. On the flip side, I feel like shame is something that is built on controlling yourself to an extent so you can fit in, so you can not really even fit in, so you can learn from your mistakes and fit in for survival and fit in so that you can evolve, your genes can evolve and be passed down in generations. Point is, since that aspect of control is there, it is also a very useful way of controlling others. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think a lot of us realize in our lives how much we have been controlled using shame, especially through parents, family, school is a huge one, where shame is sort of embedded and poked at so that you could be controlled. And really, not to sound like you're controlled and your mind manipulated, but to also say that you have been molded into a version that other people think is right for society and right for yourself and healthy for you, which is, could be. But also, all I'm really doing with this podcast and with this episode is inviting you to see if there are some parts of yourself that are being hidden by shame and not accepted by shame. And it's uncomfortable, and it's something that you experience often. Because more often than not, the parts of you that you are hiding, it's not even that bad. It's probably like in the 5th grade, your teacher said your handwriting sucked, and so you buried that deep down. You practice day and night to get your handwriting good. But what that resulted in is a deep-rooted fear of, if you're not sort of prim and proper, you're not accepted and you're not doing the right thing. It snowballs. The whole thing snowballs. And yeah, and it kind of grows in proportion and turns into something that it was never in the first place. I'm very confused about that, how that happens, and why our nervous systems do that. And I'm guessing it's only because all our nervous systems do is feel. They feel, and that's how they see, is through feeling. So when the same feeling comes, the same thing is associated with the sort of core narrative of what's going on there. Anyway, moving on to sort of the next thing. Another thing I want to talk about this feeling of guilt is the more you stay in that feeling of guilt with one thing, you attract. It's sort of like a vortex of energy where other things that invoke this feeling of guilt also kind of get dragged in, and it turns into this solidified experience that you're having that reaffirm that you should be shameful and that you should feel guilty for the experiences and your mistakes and your actions. And it's a hard rut to get yourself out of, because it's a very insecure rut. You think that someone else pulling you out is the only way to get out. So you look for validation, and it goes in many directions. But I think deep down, first and foremost, it's just a lack of acceptance of who you are, and a lack of acknowledgement of your existence and your mistakes. Because if you do, and you allow yourself to have this colorful experience of a human life, and not just the right way of doing human life, and not just the right way of experiencing, and the right way of living, and the right way of evolving. I don't know what shame turns into, because obviously I also still have shame, and shame is something that hasn't really changed all that much. It's gone down in frequency, and I'm guessing it sort of, now that I'm thinking about it, it has gone down in intensity, but I don't think it'll go away forever. Right now, what I'm trying to do with shame and trying to figure out with shame is it something that is normal that I have to live with and experience and fully accept for the rest of my life, which I'm okay with doing? as each experience comes and each confrontation of emotions come. I had a coffee right before this and I'm sleepy. Is it something that I just have to experience and tell myself that it's okay that I'm experiencing this? Or is there something actually deeper to this in terms of what it means to transmute shame energetically and what that means on a fundamental level of what that energy really represents and what is the flip side of that? I hope this makes sense. It kind of got a bit arbitrary towards the end, I'm guessing. But this is also a lot of me rambling and also me figuring out through my journey and including you guys in mine. Whoever's listening, really. Because even if no one's listening, it's still fun. And it's still fun to sort of document my experiences. And yeah, I hope I do come to the bottom of this. Because since recently, I have been thinking about this idea that being a human and being part of this existence quite literally means to have to experience everything to its full spectrum and understand what you're experiencing, and not blocking what you're experiencing, not also enabling certain experiences. But I think on a fundamental level, to understand what it is and actually understand it as not just an observer, I feel, but as you. But you know what? I don't have the end to that sentence because I don't think I will do justice trying to explain it. Because I used to be so obsessed with the perfect version of me. And that's what spirituality was for a long time, was chasing that perfect version of me. So it was sort of never-ending, mind-blowing meditations and conversations with friends that were so invigorating and enlightening and made me feel like, wow, like everyone's so smart and everyone's so woke and I can also be like this. And then looking at other people who I feel like are further down in the line of spirituality than I am, and then also having a tinge of jealousy and then a tinge of like not really understanding their experience of it either and kind of viewing it through rose-colored lenses. And since recently, and when I mean recently, I mean really recently, I have been challenging that idea and allowing myself to experience a full spectrum of emotions and contradict myself constantly and be hypocritical and be wrong and also be right and also be this multitude of things of who I am. And my theme right now has been to just live. And I feel like I'm starting to notice that in other people as well. There's the energy of just existing right now, which I think is a lovely energy people can tap into and allow themselves to experience. And with that is why I feel like shame is being transmuted for me and can be transmuted, is because just existing kind of removes that aspect of guilt and shame. Anyways, that's it from me for this episode. I hope I see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this is just as much fun for you as it is for me. Okay, love you guys. Bye.